Okay, welcome to Becoming Navigating Identity, Leadership, and Career Transitions. Conversations about how we grow, evolve, and make meaningful decisions as our professional lives shift. I'm Minnie Karanja, an executive and career coach. In this space, I sit down with leaders, professionals, and changemakers to explore how identity influences leadership and how transitions reshape us, as well as how we move forward in alignment. Because growth isn't just about the next title, it's about who we are becoming along the way. If you're navigating change, questioning your direction, or stepping into a new season of leadership, you're in the right place. So let's begin. Today, my host is Juma Omala, and I'll tell you more about Juma by reading his bio. Juma has masters in public health and public policy. He currently works with the Government of Alberta as manager compensation engagement with the Ministry of Health. Juma is also the founder of Bold Step Initiative, where he has been involved with advocacy efforts to advance the progressive realization of the right to health and addressing rural poverty for marginalized communities. Juma is passionate about women's economic empowerment, youth and development, and social policy, and is a lifelong learner. Outside of work, Juma enjoys listening to music and spending time with his family. Welcome, Juma. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much, Minnie, for inviting me for in this platform.
I look forward to our conversation. So let's start this by looking back at your career journey. Could you share with us how your career journey has evolved to where you are today?
Thanks, Minnie. It's been a very long journey, I would say. It has not been linear. I have crossed unfamiliar paths. I've had to rebuild my career over the years in new countries, new continents. So my journey started long time ago. I say long time ago, that's relative, but not too long ago, but I went to Kenyatta University where I studied a Bachelor of Science in Community Resource Management. And then I minored in public health. So that's where my public health interest kind of grew from there. And then after that, as normally, like once you finish university, you go out there, hustle, look for jobs. So I did that, tried a few jobs here and there, but really the big breakthrough came, I think, after 2 years when I got an opportunity to go to the US under a program called Global Health Corps. So it's online. It's another opportunity that young people can explore. So you get about, at that time, they were bringing professionals interested in public health or global health to the US and other African countries like Rwanda, Zambia, Malawi. At that time, Kenya was not, and I believe it's still not a host country. But as Kenyan citizen, you can work in those other African countries. I think they removed that component of going to the US now, but then it was there. So I went to the US for 13 months and I worked with a homeless shelter called Covenant House. So, very new to the country, very new to the culture. I had to learn and relearn everything I thought I knew, which was an eye opener for me. Anyway, so after US, I came back home anticipating that I would get a good job, and then some challenges arose that I believe we will get time to discuss during the conversation. But then after that, I landed an opportunity doing well in that role with an organization that I won't mention for now. But then, so I settled in Kenya because I wanted to do a postgraduate, like a master's program outside the country after my opportunity in the US, but it wasn't possible, right? So I came back, struggled a bit, eventually got a job, settled. But then, remember my dream to go back to school. So I kept applying for scholarships. Then I gave up. I'm like, okay, I'll just enroll to the University of Nairobi, do my Master of Public Health, and then life continues. But then when I went there, they told me, oh yeah, you have to do like, it's full time in person. So there's no online component. You can't go in the evenings after work. It has to be full time during the day. So I'm like, okay, maybe I should try elsewhere. like outside, right? So I did apply for the Chevening Scholarship, which is in the UK. And fortunately, I was selected to study public health in the University of Liverpool. So when there, had to resign from my job because apparently they wouldn't give me study leave unpaid, which I was requesting for. But I took a leap of faith and just went there, did my thing, and then afterwards came to Canada and another scholarship for another master's degree at McGill University, where I studied public policy. And then afterwards remained to build a career all over again in Canada. So it's not been a linear path like people would expect. But I had to build my career in Kenya, in the US, and then study in the UK, and then come back to Canada where I studied and then eventually remained here. But to your question on career journey, it's been a really long journey, full of learning, full of failures, opportunities, and frustrations, and everything else you can imagine. That's a brief summary of my career journey so far.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Juma. I think what I hear a lot of is the transitions you've had to make, moving from one kind of country to another, starting afresh, learning the culture, learning the professional space, the workplace, and try to navigate that as you continued with your studies. And you mentioned some
Mhm.
challenges that you came across, going back to Kenya and not being able to find an opportunity and navigating that and deciding to go back to school. So could you share with us a little bit about what were some of the things that surprised you as you had to
Mhm.
rebuild your career in different countries, in the US and in the UK? What were some of the lessons and things that surprised you about that?
Yeah. Surprises are in plenty. There's no short supply of that, I would say. It's just, I think people underestimate how long it takes to rebuild a career. Like it's it's just to be open-minded about what life throws at you, but to be able to transition and think really about how you want your future to be. I think the surprises I've had so far is just moments of self-doubt, like you really don't know, you don't think you fit in, you're trying to prove yourself. You have to, when you move to a new country, and get a new job, you have to rebuild connection, trust with your employers and your peers and whoever you are reporting to or whoever is reporting to you. Is a unending cycle that you have to keep working on. You have to keep showing up. Unfortunately for us immigrants, you have to always prove yourself, prove your worth, prove your value, the value you bring to the table. The first instinct that people have is, oh, can they really do it? Can she or he do it? Why she or he and not someone else, maybe from in the context of Canada? Why not a Canadian? Because I work with the Ministry of Health, which is now the Ministry of Primary and Preventative Health Services. And, people who are born in Canada, they are already used to the system. They've been going to hospital or clinic. They're used to the healthcare system. So it's just easy to hire someone within the system who is a Canadian citizen who may have been born in Canada or have lived long enough to have interacted with the system. But so then to bring an immigrant who just came in, their instinct is, let's see what they can do, right? Let's see what he or she can do. So then you have to prove to them, subconsciously sometimes, prove to them that you're worthy and that you deserve that opportunity. And so what surprised me is just the amount of the rebuilding that you have to do, the proving, although you deserve the opportunity and you are qualified for it, perhaps sometimes more than others. And sometimes you just positioned yourself at the right time, the right place, and got the right opportunity. But then the other thing is just the system and the barriers that it has. It still have some hidden. Some of them are not even hidden. They are both overt and covert barriers that we have to deal with. But so that's really challenging, I would say. And I wouldn't say it's more of a surprise, but it's not, right? Because it's kind of sadly expected when you move to a new country with a new culture. You have to relearn and learn some of the things that you knew and always trying to prove yourself, trying to get used to the system. So that's I think has surprised me along.
Let's talk about how you've had to rebuild three times
Mhm.
in the UK and now in
Yeah.
Canada. And you talked about self doubt, rebuilding
Mhm.
midst of overcoming self doubt. How was that
Yeah.
process? What helped you to overcome self doubt? And have you overcome self doubt?
For me, I don't know about others. I don't know about you, Minnie, but that's something I'm working on it, but I don't think I have truly really overcome it. I mean, I started with the government of Alberta just about 3 years ago, and I started as a policy advisor. And I was really fortunate to have a good boss who we worked really well together. And throughout the 3 years, I have been promoted multiple times. And I have been given responsibilities that would require a different set of me to show up in a different way, right? But anyway, just being able to do that and be in a position where I am today in a span of 3 years, that's really commendable. I don't think I paused to reflect about it and just, pat myself in the back and the people who have helped me to get there because I don't believe in self-made, like people say self-made. I did it myself, self-made. The common phrase is self-made millionaire, so to speak, or self-made something. But I believe that in your journey of becoming, you mentioned becoming before we started recording, it requires a community. We need support. We need people who have probably walked through that journey. Which brings me to my next point in just tapping into mentorship, coaching, like what you're doing for the community. I mean, you have walked that journey. You have interacted with people who have walked that journey. So you are in a better position to help others like me and people who are also coming from, like people who are new or just trying to figure things out. But for me, it's been just a working in progress. But throughout the years, what has helped me is just tapping into the people who have come before us and professionals like you who are able to provide support, resources, and all the info that is helpful throughout the journey. And also over the years, I think you build some sort of resilience to be able to tackle anything that is presented to you, really. And there's no option to give up. You have to just keep working at it and keep proving yourself before you prove others, proving yourself that you can and you're worthy and you deserve everything good that's happening to you.
That is fantastic. And I think what I'm also hearing is your determination that you have to succeed and you keep pursuing these opportunities. You pursue community, you build a community around you, you reach out for resources, you network, you get information about how to move forward in your career. Sounds like that is a strategy that you have applied to overcome the self-doubt, to be able to stretch yourself. And by the way, congratulations being able to grow your career as much as you have in a span of 3 years. As you said, that's very commendable and that's something to celebrate. What would you say is helped you to grow where you are right now to be able to get that promotion and get another one right after? What has helped you in the workplace to be able to get there?
Yeah, it's no one single thing, you know. As I said again, it's work in progress, but I think mostly it's just self-belief. I know I said, sometimes you doubt yourself and whether you can or cannot do it. But if you believe you can, then there's no limits. There's no limit to what you can do. There's a quote I saw when I was growing up that has stuck with me over the years. And I think it was somewhere in my dad's wall, their living room. I can't remember where I saw it, but I might have been maybe 9, 10 years old. and I don't remember who said it, but it said most obstacles are imaginary, the rest are only temporary. So it's the obstacles we imagine in our mind. You know, the mind is a very important tool to help you either create obstacles or overcome them. So usually some of these obstacles are just, if they are not imaginary, they are temporary. So the way I think about it is it begins with the mind, in the mind. So I create a goal for myself. This is what I want to achieve. And usually I think long term, because if you think, well, you have to think both short term and long term, and sometimes medium term too. But just thinking long term helps me to clarify at each step what I want to achieve. And I know it's a cliche. People say that your vision, you need to write it somewhere. Then you have like close to 80% of achievement rate, but it's true. So if you have a goal that you're consistently working on and showing up each day, I believe that it's not too far from being achieved. So if it's possible, if you believe, if you dream it, you live it, you work towards it, and that's what has helped me throughout the years. And also, because I've moved countries, that has helped shift something in my brain to gain a new perspective. Just be open to learning. Like in my bio, you said long time learner, life learner. And that's really true for me because I believe for you to evolve, you have to learn, you have to be open minded. When I went to the US, I was working with teenagers from 18 to I think 21 years. Not well, not really. Yeah, most of them were teenagers. And so they were at that stage of just exploring life out there, what's possible for them. They're trying to identify trying to learn their identities, so it was a really challenging job, but it just helped me to open up my brain for all the possibilities to be able to help them in their goals, right? So for me, it's just about the goal and the vision you put for yourself, and then the possibility that you believe you can achieve it. And then just that expanded global perspective that I have from traveling. I believe you learn a lot from traveling than you can ever learn in class, even in a PhD program. Traveling just, expands your brain in a way that nothing else can. So that has helped me. And then just being strategic, like I said, have a vision, a long term plan. What do I need to achieve in where do I need to be in 3 to 5 years? And then stick to that and make small steps that you need to take that will get you there.
I agree with you that having a mindset that allows you to achieve what you want to achieve, the goal that you set for yourself, is very important. And I also believe in actually writing it down because that helps the brain to really focus on, make that connection that this is something that you're really serious about pursuing.
Yeah.
And you mentioned so many important things that I want to talk more about. It's the growth mindset, believing that can do it and actually pursuing it. And I also hear clarity about where do I want to be in the next 3 to 5 years. And so I want to ask you, what has guided you in making your
Mhm.
goals? When you think about, the next 3 to 5 years, for instance, if you're open to sharing, where do you want to be and what is guiding the vision of where you want to be?
Well, yeah, it's a really loaded question, and there's no one possible answer to that. Um, I mean, career-wise, usually I think four major buckets that I usually have, and people say, my friends say, "Oh no, I'm not writing." If I ask, like, "Do you write New Year resolutions?" I know it's a thing that some people resent, but I like to do that exercise just so that I can get clarity on what I want to achieve through the year and through the next few years. So I can come back to it and see. So usually I categorize my goals into four. So first of all is family, and then secondly, career wise, professional wise, and then thirdly, financial wise, and then health, which is I believe the most important. because if you're not healthy, you can't even show up for your family, for your job, and that also impacts your finances. So my goals are usually fall into those four buckets. And I won't tell you specifically what I want to achieve for all of them, but I can assure you that I usually reflect about what I've been able to achieve so far and then where I want to take it a step further from there. I always want to improve and build upon what I have achieved, just building from my past, few years. So career wise, I think this is like I beat all sorts of vision that I placed for myself. So I think I wasn't just dreaming big enough. But so every time when you reach a certain level, you want to progress, right? It's human nature. Like you can never reach a certain place where you're like, okay, I think I have arrived. That never happens. I know, well, I don't know them, but I read about billionaires who have all the resources they at their disposal to do whatever they want to do, but they're still, aiming, like still waking up at 5 a.m. in the morning, making things happen. So my vision in general is just to be the better person that I was than yesterday and always try to, make those small adjustments. I have ambitious health goals this year. I'm trying to be active, trying to be intentional about what put in my body. I have to show up for my family. I have big financial goals. And career wise, right now I'm into a position of leadership. So also that comes with a responsibility. So you have to now think about how you want to show up for people who report to you, mentor them, guide them. And the biggest of all is I have a dream, or I think it's not a dream anymore because I'm actively working towards it. It's just to open doors for many others and impact lives in a way that I have not been able to do in the past few years.
Well, I like the wholesome approach that you're bringing to this journey of clarity. You're having to think about what does it look like to show up for my family, to make sure that I'm healthy? How does my work align with all the goals that I want to achieve in my life? And I'm a big believer in alignment, in moving in alignment that the professional is not separate from the personal. And so everything needs to move in coherence if you want to move in a direction closer to your dreams. So that really resonates with me, and I'm sure it's going to resonate with a lot of people. Let's talk about your identity. And now, as you said, you're in a
Mhm.
leadership position. Your
Yeah.
identity, how has it evolved from, the early days of trying to build your career, rebuilding it in different countries, as well as transitioning from university to full-time employment? How has your identity shifted over time?
So I don't know what we define as identity, but I'll try. Identity, I think, is to me is just the beliefs that I hold dear, the person I am, what consists of me, what do I believe in, and I think those, I don't know, but I think those evolve over time. Those usually cannot be. Hold on. Okay. So I believe those cannot be static. They have to keep evolving. And over time, as I move across continents, of course, the perspective is going to shift, right? And when I was a student, so there's a different system in these countries. When I say these countries, I mean North America, Europe, in terms of how they teach. So we did a lot of group work. I don't know. In Kenya, it's different. It's more competitive and it's individualistic. It's about what I'm able to achieve myself. But I think in these countries, it's about teamwork and, working together that really prepares you for the real world. Because in real world, you really never work alone unless you're like, even you as a coach, you work with people, right? So I think my perspective just shifted from being competitive and wanting more for myself, wanting to be at the top, to just collaborating with people, teamwork, and achieving more as a group, but also just what I talked about initially, working with different people. First of all, in the US, I was really new. I've been outside of the country, but not for that long, you know. It was just for short conferences. So those things over time, whether you like it or not, shape who you are or who you're becoming. And if you are intentional, they shape you for the better. So I'll give you an instance. Because I have been in positions where you're being discriminated against or being doubted, like we said before, by people above you, or just some things that happen that are not they're perpetuated by individual, but really when you take a step back, it's a whole system that's broken that would need to be fixed. And so now, as a leader, in my organization, when you get there, you're like, "Oh, so now I'm here. Let me make it better for someone who is coming after me or someone who was in my shoes before." And so you're constantly thinking about what else you can do better so that you change. You might not change the whole system, but your small contribution contribute a better system over time. Again, like it's thinking long term, right? So just show up, do what you can, and at least make somewhere or a place better than you found it for other people who are also coming.
That is so true and resonates with me as well. But you're not able to do huge structural changes sometimes, but wherever you are, wherever you find yourself, that you have the power, how do you think of shaping the space using your power,
Hmm.
using voice to advocate for people that cannot speak for themselves or do not understand how to navigate the system? It's so important that you're actually in a position to do that now. And congratulations again for, getting there and being willing to open the door for others.
It's
I
not easy, but we try.
Yeah, we keep trying and showing up and being the best version of ourselves. And we talked about how your identity has been shaped, how you have grown, you've evolved, you've been able to navigate different structures in different countries to
Hmm.
expand yourself and to keep in alignment. I believe in continually reflecting to see how are you expanding? Are you making space for others? Are you appreciating the growth and where you feel you're being led, where your soul is leading you to become better in all the ways that you can? And now, as we try to close this discussion today, I would ask you to share with us some advice to newcomers and particularly to those that are transitioning full-time education in higher institutions into full-time. You've experienced that a couple of times.
Yeah.
Share with us some of the learnings that you would give them and perhaps what you would tell yourself if you were to start all over again.
It goes back to what I said before, which, like I mentioned, is so powerful. I don't know, like, how else to put it, but that single quote, I think that I said most obstacles are imaginary, the rest are only temporary. So I know it's very hard for, especially if you're moving countries, you're new. It's so heartbreaking for people who someone was a doctor, medical doctor in their country, and only to come here to be an Uber driver. I have nothing against Uber drivers, but it's not a field that compared to medicine. Like, I know you have to start somewhere, but it's so heartbreaking to be able to pick on gigs here and there before you really transition to your career or what you went to school for. And so that period usually is so frustrating, so difficult. And I'm not only talking about the physicians only. This applies across the professions. Most often you find someone was really doing well in their country, earning really high salary, only to come here to restart, like start building again the trust we talked about and the systems that you have to navigate. So it can really be difficult, but I can assure them that it's only temporary. And if you keep the focus, you will achieve what you want to achieve. The other thing I've learned over the years is patience. If you can master the art of patience, I mean, is a strategic strength, and there's nothing else that can test you that will break you. You'll be able to overcome anything. Really, people in this day and age, in this generation, I don't know if it's a millennial and or Gen Z thing, but people want quick progress, quick things, quick money, quick, immediate recognition, rapid results. It doesn't happen. Well, it happens, but only to, I don't know, less than 5% of people. Maybe to people who bought crypto over COVID and made a ton of money. That's a one-time event, but that's a really small clique of people. But the real strength here is patience. But not only patience, you have to combine that with the strategic thinking and the vision that we said you have to have, and not only have, but to write, and then just make small progress towards it over the years. Those are my two top tips. Just know that meaningful change takes time, and anything good takes time to build. It can't be overnight. For some people, it may be, but if we are being realistic, it takes time. And then, lastly, it's just about the networks. I can't overemphasize this. Like the networks, I realized quickly in Canada, it's not about your well, it's somehow, I would say 40, 60%. 40% is about your skills and your expertise, your knowledge, your qualifications. You may have two master degrees like I do, but if you don't know strategic people in the system, or if you don't have a community who can open opportunities and doors and ideas for you, it will take you twice as longer to get where you want to get than if you were open to building those relationships. So it's all about the community, placing yourself strategically in places and opportunities where otherwise you wouldn't have heard about. And that does not only consist of, Kenyan community or African community or someone somewhere, we call them sponsors in the workplace that can talk good about you, even in your absence. That's really important. But also, right now, we have social media, we have LinkedIn, we have all these other tools that help you to reach out to people and offer value for them, not only what you need, but what you're also offering. So I believe social media is a game changer for us, especially as immigrants trying to build or rebuild our careers in a new country.
Thank you so much, Juma, for sharing that. It's been a pleasure hosting you. There's so much in this conversation that is beneficial, and I, for one, will be going back to listen to this because you've just shared so much value to our audience today. And before we close, I want to share what stayed with me. It's the determination to succeed, the taking time to find clarity about where you want to be, and the realization that you cannot be self made. To succeed, you need a community. You need the people that are going to point you in the right direction. You talked about the sponsors, building a network, and as you mentioned, LinkedIn is such an important tool for professionals today to be able to identify who in their network, who is able to support, to speak on their behalf in rooms when they are not present. That is so important. Thank you again for taking time to share your wisdom with us, and it will be a pleasure to host you again. I sense that there is a need for a second conversation here to just go deeper into what you shared today. Now, yeah, we are going to end here. And before I close it, I want to say that, transitions are really just professional, they're personal. They reshape how we see ourselves and how we lead. And often the most important work happens in the space between certainty and clarity. If this conversation resonated, you can find more reflections, resources, and ways to stay connected on my website, minniekaranja.com. Thank you again for listening to Becoming. Until next time, stay grounded, stay reflective, and lead in alignment to the person that you are becoming. Thank you. Goodbye.